to wait for just a couple of minutes. We have almost 200 participants. If we wait for a couple of minutes, I'm sure we'll easily cross that number. Well, we're already at 195. So just be patient for a couple of minutes and we will get started shortly thereafter. Thank you. Really my pleasure today to organize a wonderful, experienced, and highly knowledgeable range of panelists. I will start with the screen at the bottom, which I see Mr. Rajiv Gupta. He's the Vice President and Group Head Internal Audits at Flipkart, but I think Flipkart also includes a lot of other organizations. Rajiv is a business leader with extensive experience in applying finance, technology, data science, forensics in improving governance and compliance environment of organizations. He's also written for the ICAI a technical guide on internal audit of beverage industry, which I presume was in his last avatar. He's a regular speaker at various forums on the future of internal audit, governance, fraud, automated data analytics, whistleblowing, etc. And he has also designed and been managing internal audit methodology consisting of technology risk, process risk, and SOX compliances. Then we have Anuj Agarwal, who's the DGM Internal Audit of Maruti Suzuki India. Anuj is a CA and an MBA with more than 18 years of experience in internal audit, risk management, internal controls, forensics, and financial audits. A strong accounting professional with a PG diploma in finance from the MDI, focusing on information technology in his PG. He's actively involved in transformation of internal audit function from the traditional approach to the tech-driven approach. Our third panelist is Mr. Manish Bhatia. Manish is a career and risk audit professional with 20 plus years in diversified roles across risk management and audit functions across a couple of industries. He spent close to a decade working with KPMG, and he was also closely involved in the BFSI sector, working with a few of the big names, Credit Suisse, Bank of America, Citigroup. In his current role in EXL services, he's focusing on integrating the three lines with one standardized way to evaluate risks and controls across the 60 plus global delivery centers of EXL and leveraging real-time and continuous monitoring concepts to make conventional audits more effective. He is a chartered accountant, a CISA, and a CIA. And last but not the least, my friend, Mr. Jolly Joseph, better known as Joe, who is the Director Internal Audits for Target in India. Target, as you may know, is a $75 billion organization with about 1,900 stores in the US. So Joe drives global audits, digital transformation, and manages the three centers of excellence for testing, analytics, and automation for internal audit on a global basis. With over 2 decades of experience, he's passionate about tech-based auditing, analytics, automation, innovation, and the future of internal auditing. Prior to joining Target, he has worked with Wipro, HP, Deloitte, Ford Motor, and he also is a CA, a CISA, and CIA. So that's a good tip for all of you. If you want to get to these positions, I guess you should all be doing your CI as well. If I may add, Joe is also a very active leader in the Institute of Internal Auditors. He is currently chairing the Student Development Committee. He's been president of the Bangalore chapter. He's been the chief editor of our Internal Audit magazine. He's also a national trainer for the internal audit. So we do look forward to all of you stepping up your volunteering. If you can follow Joe's footsteps, I'm sure it's going to help take you all places. So before we get started, I'll just spend a couple of minutes in kind of setting the context. regarding why the subject of reskilling IA in the new norm and in the digital age. I think the impact of COVID on internal audit and the impact of technology on how internal audit is being conducted has been the subject of many webinars and trainings which we have been conducting over the last few months because of the specific circumstances we are all undergoing. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you are aware, but the IIA has just released its second edition of On Risk 2021, which talks about some of the key risks, which are being faced by industry on a global basis. This actually brings together the perspectives, three different perspectives of the board, of the chief audit executives, as well as of the management. And they also have emphasized about the impact of COVID on business continuity management, on cybersecurity, on disruptive innovation, and how all of these are impacting industries across the board. This has helped many of our members and participants realize as some of the key trends which are starting to affect all of us in the profession. The first one is the proliferation of data and the formation of data lakes, and unfortunately, in some companies, data silos. I mean, data governance is also one of the risks which has been identified by On Risk 2021. The necessity of working from home is something which has been forced upon many of us, but let's not forget, I think many of us are also starting to enjoy it. I think it's a great feeling to be sitting in your shorts and t-shirts and being able to work from home. So it also does offer a convenience to all of us. The third is the need to accept, adopt, and adapt technology in order for us professionals to be more effective internal auditors. The need to rethink on the role of internal auditing and how it can add value. Which are the technologies which we need to use in order to be able to kind of perform the roles which are now being thrust upon us and the rethought roles which we are looking at? I really cannot think of a better qualified panel, chief audit executives, internal audit leaders, representing the top companies in their categories. As one of my friends, known to most of you, Nagesh Pinge, mentioned on a WhatsApp group, he says today the range of panelists covers from retail to detail. So, I thought that was really appropriate. And so we have companies like Flipkart, Maruti, EXL Services, and the target group, all of which are actually managing absolutely immense amounts of data and using technology extremely effectively to handle this. I have no doubt that the experiences and the knowledge which these eminent panelists are going to be sharing with us will help us to shape and refine our own internal audits and our own internal audit strategies about what we do, how we do it, and how can we do it in the future, both within our own firms, within our own organizations, and within our own functions. So let's get started with the questions. My first question is going to be directed at Rajiv Gupta. So Rajiv, during the new norm, most organizations, as I've just discussed, have been conducting remote audits. Tell me that if you were given a choice, do you think this is here to stay, or would you like to go back to the more traditional ways of doing audit? Over to you, Rajiv. Rajiv, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil. Firstly, whatever response I will be sharing, those will be, my own views, considering the experience which I am carrying, and may not necessarily be the experience from a particular organization I am working or I have worked for.
Right.
Coming to the question, Nikhil, see, for last 3 to 4 years, I have been advocating the need to change the way we as auditors go about governance, controls, and the entire assurance agenda. this change is required for two broad reasons. One is the companies for which we are working for or we are providing consulting, they have changed the way they operate, what systems they use, what technologies they use, and how much they rely on the man-machine partnership. That has significantly changed and is changing exponentially, changing with the exponential speed. So as auditors, are we adequately aware about the risk these changes are bringing is something which we need to think about. That's one. Secondly, there are many artificial intelligence and the RPA power tools which can be customized and made use for the risk management and controls agenda as well. My question is, which I have been asking for last 3 to 4 years, is are we leveraging those tools and solutions for our own functions? Fortunately, unfortunately, Nikhil, 2020 is turning out to be the year when the external environment has forced us to think on these lines. And I'm sure, once this pandemic is over, me and, many of us, we will continue to capitalize on many of these, technology solutions, which are helping us bring to light some of those, unknown risks or the risks which with the many of our traditional ways of working, we could not come out with, and that's where we are moving, I would say, from the approach of, sample to ample. So I think that whatever we are now graduating to, it is going to continue. Yes, but we will come back to some extent of manual intervention as well. So for example, right now, nobody is visiting the factories, the plants. So how the physical controls, whether it's verification, stock take, and all those are being taken care. We would need to re-engineer that approach and see whether we are totally losing the touch with the physical world. So that right balance we will be coming up very soon, maybe 2021 or 2022.
Right. So what you say is there's likely to be a good combination where, maybe a couple of days you can work in your shorts and t-shirts, but on some days you'll have to put on your trousers and your coats and go and actually work at the location which you're supposed to. So I guess, yes, some organizations are talking about a 33% work from home and, doing it on a staggered basis. But thank you so much. I think this is a great time for us to ask a first poll question to our audience regarding what their views on this particular subject are. So Satish, can I please request you to pose the poll question to everyone? Thank you. The question is, during the new norm, post the initial disruption, to what extent were you able to adhere to the audit plan? So was there a huge change? Is it less than 25%, 5 to 50%? 50 to 75% or more than 75%. So let's give a couple of minutes to see how people respond to this. Happy to inform you that we now have close to 320 participants. So we already have our results over here. So it says that, okay, more than 75% was the impact. Is that right? And 50 to 75% is close to 25%. So by and large, the change has not been as much as some of us thought it could be. So that is definitely interesting. So let's move to our next question. My next question is to Mr. Manish Bhatia. Manish, with remote audit proliferating, You've had a lot of experience working with global service delivery centers, I'm sure both in the BFSI as well as with EXL. So do you see global organizations building and growing their delivery centers in India in order to become more cost effective? What's your view?
Thanks, Nikhil. Thanks for bringing me in, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to the group today. So the concept of remote auditing, as we all know, is been here, right? Large Fortune 500 companies have already adopted this, and in last say 5 to 7 years, we have seen a steady increase of roles moving from APAC, EMEA, and Americas to India in the internal audit functions, right?
Right.
And lot of this has to do with, I think, their own operations and technology processes, getting transferred to the global delivery centers in India. Hence, there's a need to cover the underlying risk on real-time basis. Some of it also has to talk to the concept of the talent pool, right? The skill sets we have in India, right? And the better prospects we can show to the rest of the world. And obviously, the cost effectiveness of that talent pool, right? Even the big four, if I have to talk about, have heavily invested in their remote audit capabilities, right, in India, back offices, etc. So I would say this concept is not new. Now, this topic today is about auditing in the digital era. So I will try and respond to this question in maybe two buckets, right? One is structured data, auditing a structured data set versus auditing a non-structured data set, right? Now, we all know what a structured data is. It's an index form of data in a predefined agreeable format, easy to interpret and audit remotely, right? And these are like examples of, say, procure to pay or order to cash processes, which directly come from upstream ERP systems, and teams sitting in India can easily comprehend this and perform their testing, right? Even in the banking space where I belong to and have come from, I've seen KYC or AML process being audited remotely, right? You don't need to be with the auditees to interpret this information, right? You can really get the data and run your testing around. Now comes the question of the non-structured data, and this is what we grappled with in 2020. If I have to break it further, now this is obviously the opposite of the structured data, where you need to ask questions. You have to have tangible or closeness to the process owners, right, to actually see what's going on their systems, on their files, right? And the auditors used to earlier fly out to these global locations from India to plan and test these kind of reviews, right? In 2020, all of that got restricted. So we had to use, I'm sure everybody, 300 plus people will agree, we had to use collaboration tools, the screen shares, also getting another level of accesses into the underlying application and databases to audit some of the assertions, right? Now, if you ask me for my personal organization, my view, we were still able to execute to 75 to 80% of our audit calendar this year, working
Great.
from home. Yeah. With the similar kind of impact, flushing out similar sort of risk, which we did in past. However, the efficiency levels were not as great, right? Because it was an evolving journey, and we are still learning as we speak. So to answer to your question directly, yes, this will happen. It's inevitable. The roles in IA are gonna grow up because more we learn to how to audit non-structured data out of India, out of global locations. Yes, the roles will grow, right? And we can bring more impact sitting out of here. However, as all the good auditors say, there are disclaimers, right? So there will be barriers around language, for example, or barriers around cross-border data transfers. Some privacy regulations want us to be more careful in doing so. We will have to focus great depth into planning process, right? I mean, it's not going to be easy to audit such sort of data sets, right? And then obviously to invest heavily on our skill set, right? We need to all move to be a digital migrants, right? If I can use that word, and start taking things differently and start analyzing data sets to be doing more trend analysis, variant analysis sort of work. So yes, short answer to your question is definitely.
No, that's fantastic news, I think, for the internal audit profession. So do join up, join up the IIA, become members, get your certifications, join the programs, attend more webinars being attended organized by IIA and Protiviti. And I think, you'll all be able to become a part of the movement, which helps in the transfer of more internal audit work into India. Of course, the unfortunate part is that the foreign junkets may now be coming down because travel is more or less been at a standstill during this year. So hopefully, let's hope for the benefit of everyone that is something which is going to change. So Rajiv, to come back to you, and I assure you we will not monopolize you. We have questions for the others also. Is that with digitization fueling innovation and change, a key question that arises is internal audit adjusting quickly enough in terms of innovation and use of underlying technologies to adapt to the new norm as well as the digital age. What is your view on this?
Sure, Nikhil. See, I have been working very closely in the space of advanced data analytics, in the space of how RPA and AI can be brought into the way we manage the entire governance, not only internal audits. But what I'm seeing is that the rate of adoption is pretty low as of now, and I'm saying globally, not only in India. But it is going to have an exponential growth. Why it is low right now, Nikhil? Because there are some questions that still needs to be answered. Like, see, today, me and other, audit functions, we have a team of chartered accountants, MBAs, the business, the team members, engineers who help us execute audit. And we know whom to reach out to, who is my team member who actually executed that audit if something goes wrong in that particular audit. Now, tomorrow, if AI-based robots, they are driving my audit and some goof up happens in an audit, the question that needs to be answered is whom I will catch hold of. Yeah, that's one. Secondly, see, today, audit and other leaders, we are given leadership and managerial skill training, emotional intelligence, crucial conversations, business partnering training, and whatnot. Tomorrow, these trainings will become redundant because your teams will actually consist of AI-based robots. Now, with robots, you cannot use emotional intelligence. So we will actually need absolute different skill set for all of us as the audit, or I would say the broader, the governance leaders, because the entire, the ecosystem in which we'll operate will be very, very different. These are some of the questions which are still work in progress in terms of how we will manage. Bringing a bot is not a big deal. Bringing advanced data analytics is not a big deal. But how you will manage the new ecosystem is something which is still being worked on. And my my question to all of you, including the participants of this webinar, is: are we actually thinking and preparing ourselves for these challenges? The moment we have a reasonable answer to some of these questions, I think we will start picking the pace of this transformation in audit and governance, the way we manage governance. Nikhil, you're on mute.
Sorry, Rajiv, and thanks for prompting me. I think whatever you're talking about is absolutely bang on. It is something we all need to consider. This was a point which we also discussed in one of our earlier trainings, where how can we ensure that machines and man, and of course, this is man's includes women. We are a diverse organization and we welcome it. How can we work more effectively together, I think, is the critical thing. You will have to use machines, you will have to use bots, but can we make sure we use them ethically? Can we make sure that we work with them in a proper manner? I think these are issues which we must address in order to become more more effective in our functions. There, of course, is also, with new technologies, with remote auditing, there is the issue of cybersecurity, but then that itself becomes a whole subject in itself, which I won't want to dwell on because, it could take so much of time, but we are all aware of the issues which are involved over here. So on this note, first of all, I'm happy to tell all the participants that a lot of our questions are actually geared towards technology and technology usage in internal audit, both today and tomorrow. But then we'll take a small break for our next poll question. Satish, in case we can just have that on the screen, please, for everyone. Thank you. So apart from data analytics, the question is, which of the underlying technologies would you prefer to use to execute an internal audit project? Would it be process mining or AI/ML based analytics tools, robotic process automation, OCR and intelligent data processing? And of course, maybe we could have added a fifth one for the not so tech savvy people, none of the above. So, but anyway, let's stick to the first four and look forward to hearing your responses on this. So we have our results. RPA has got a surprising 44%. Analytics, AI/ML based, 48%. That is not a surprise. I think data analytics is being increasingly and quite widespread, used in a widespread manner. But happy to see people looking at process mining, 32%, and OCR, another 34%. So, I think this is extremely heartening stuff. It is good to see that more and more internal auditors are actively looking at, if not already using, various technologies to make themselves more effective. So we'll move to my next question, which is actually, addressed to Anuj Agarwal. That Anuj, according to you, what are the key skills which are required for the internal audit functions to be effective in the digital age? Technology was one of your areas of specialization in your PGD from MDI. So we would be happy to hear. And do you feel that there are any challenges when it comes to reskilling our internal audit staff on the technology related functions?
Yeah, sure. Thanks you, Nikhil, for the question, I think which is very relevant in the current times. To answer this, let me start with a very small background about how our function of the internal audit is witnessing changes in the recent times. We all can recall that few years back, the auditors relied on the physical documents like purchase orders, invoices, and there was a limit to how many documents can be checked because we had a limited audit resources, we had limited time. So there was a challenge in getting these documents, this data, and how much time we could devote on how many transactions. So there was some limitation. Now suddenly, after a certain year, there is a shift. Now there is a digital revolution which is happening suddenly. And now what is happening is there is abundance of data. There is availability data, information across the board. This information is crossing the rooftop. Now problem is not how to get the data. The problem is how to audit this data. So there is no limit how many transactions we can check in any audit. So problem statement has undergone a sea change, like from the shortage of data, which we all agree as a internal auditors for so many years of experience, that there used to be a huge problem with the getting this data. Now there is abundance of data. There is no limit how much data we are supplied with. So I don't think right now the key challenge with any internal audit function is getting this stuff. Now every business, be it service space, which will be in the manufacturing space. We are getting huge volumes with a lot of variety and a lot of velocity. That is speed of generation of the data, which I call it 3 Vs. So now this is the background. Now let us add a little bit more complexity to this session. Now, as internal auditors, whatever work we have been doing, we have been focusing on this numerical data, or we call it text data. Or with the technologies and developments like the Internet of Things, social media, RFID, biometrics, you name, there are, I think, hundreds of such technologies. That data is not only limited to the text data or numerical data, but now we are also seeing the data closely go into different domains, like, for example, audio data, image, video, graphical. You can think of numerical, such kind of things. So now let us start thinking how we basically as an auditor grab such kind of development where the data is not only limited to the numerical data. We basically can make use of all such data sources. Just to give you one example, like every company, like for example, I'm in Maruti Suzuki, we have a huge plant. There are hundreds of CCTV cameras which are deployed in many places. Now, every second, every minute, they are generating huge data points. They are capturing huge quantity of videos. So this is very relevant data from an internal perspective point of view. Are we making use of such data in our working? Are we thinking of taking leverage of such data? So that is one point which I wanted to bring. So internal auditors will have to be familiar with these new realities. They have to adapt to this new way of working, new realities of data points available at their disposal. Now, with this background, I'll come to your question regarding the skills required in digital age. So as an internal auditor, we have to optimize these changes, to adopt these technologies, and we have to be basically capture this opportunity which is provided to internal departments. We never ever in history we had this opportunity. Now the times present us this opportunity to make full use of this data analytics area. If we go a little deeper into data analytics, there are a lot of business insight which are hidden in this data analytics, which can give a lot of explosive growth. Like for example, I give some example from my own experience. Like we are basically reviewing a lot of data points, be it pertaining to the procurement or be it pertaining to sales and marketing. Now, what happens is one idea is you look from this audit point of view. You see that whether there is any red flags in this data. But on the other hand, when you get into more deeper into data, you start realizing the data is speaking a very, very clear, giving very clear signals, and you can use that to demonstrate some business insight also and develop some business model also. So that has happened in our case also. And if we are very clear about the things which we are trying to use data for, we can get a very, very good output from this data analytics.
No, great. Yes, please carry on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is actually fantastic inputs which you are giving us, and I'm sure all internal auditors, especially those from the manufacturing and other sectors, would find this extremely useful. That today we have access to multiple categories of data, and some of that data is being generated by IoT. You have a lot of video and graphical data which is available. In case we can draw linkages with both the areas of control or the areas of concern, certainly internal audit can use this data effectively. I mean, for example, today you have facial recognition technology available. I mean, can we link it up with how much time a particular person is spending on his workspace? Is he actually, sitting on his platform or his workstation for 90% of the time, which he's supposed to? Or can we use facial recognition technology to enhance attendance and reduce the risk of COVID, which, biometric machines may be posting if you have to put your finger on every place, on a machine to mark your attendance. So, these are some of the examples which we are seeing in industry, and I'm sure they are applicable. I'm sorry, I got excited by what you were saying. Did you complete what you wanted to say, Anuj?
Maybe I take 2 minutes to complete my point. So I just come into the technologies because this question was regarding these key skills, which basically we are looking for the IA function to be more effective. So basically, to be more effective, I think data analytics is the idea. Yes, that's right. But we have to be very careful in choosing the right tools and technologies, because right now, tool is not the problem. There are abundance of tools available. They are off the shelf available. They are very easy to learn. So we have to be very careful, like the purpose which you are looking for tool, you should see that right tool you are using. For example, just to give our experience, like we have been using in Maruti tools like, for example, RStudio, Tableau, to name a few. And recently we are also doing a pilot on the RPAs. So what we are understanding is, yes, definitely these tools are very helpful, but you have to see which tools fits your situation better. You cannot just pick that this is a tool which is the best tool in the market and that you just apply horizontally for organization. So you have to be very, very careful in choosing these tools depending on what you are doing and what is your unique situation. Now, as internal auditors, coming to the key point, as internal auditors, we have to get going in this area. We cannot leave it to the specialists. I think we have to take it to get insight in this all tools. We cannot say, yes, we will not look at this RStudio, we will not look at the Tableau, we will not look at the BI tool, we will not look at the Power BI. I think as auditors, now we have to take charge and get going in this area. So for that, I think we have to, if we have to go for training, we have to go for training. But I think right now training is not an issue. There's so many things available online. I think it's just a matter of time where things naturally without having any special focus on. So Nikhil, this I wanted to convey from my side. I think I leave it to you now to take it forward.
No, thank you so much, Anuj. I think you brought in some very, very interesting perspectives. Today, there are a huge number of technologies, but what is going to be the cost benefit of these technologies, the costs of one technology vis-a-vis the other, what are the benefits we can extract? If I may also espouse the cause of the smaller professional firms and the smaller internal audit functions. I think all of you are from organizations which are huge, and of course we have a lot to learn from you, but the challenge for smaller organizations is, can they afford all the technologies which are available in the market? So for them to look at something which is cost effective, it actually becomes a sink or a swim situation. Like you have to either sink or swim in the data lakes which are being created today, because if you don't know how to navigate your way across that data, you have that problem. Similarly, if you don't use technology today, I think there is a big risk of the internal audit function drowning in inefficiency and incapability. So I think these are some of the questions which also would need to be considered extremely strongly by all of us. But in the meanwhile, I think Satish, you do have another question on the skills which we think are important. So if you could just pose that poll question to our audience, let's get their views on what we feel that apart from professional risk management, internal audit, and the management stream, which of the following two skills would you like to have in your internal audit function? So what are the skills which, given a choice, given the money availability, what would we really think would be the most useful skill for our internal audit functions and teams to possess? Over to the audience, please. Okay, so it almost becomes a no-brainer. It looks like almost everyone wants to have a data scientist or a data doctor available on their teams. And then we have almost an equivalent amount of people looking at ethical hacking, at technology developers, and ERP implementation skills. So, okay, so that is something which I find extremely interesting. But yes, so I think everyone is getting impacted by the huge proliferation of data, by the data lakes and the data silos. And this is something which needs to be addressed. So thank you all for your responses. Now, if we continue, across the vein of, how technology can better be used, for internal auditing purposes, Joe, I would like to address my next question to you. How do you actually use, because I know you do, how can you actually use technology for better internal audit planning purposes? This is something which I think would be very useful. Traditionally, we've all been used to making our plans, 1 year in advance. You tweak them by 5%, 10%, and next year, okay, you make sure that everything gets covered once every 3 years. The first thing which we had to do was make sure that those plans, or half of them or 1/3 of them, flew out of the window as soon as the pandemic struck. But when we have a targeted focus, which I'm sure you do in Target, please tell us how you can use technology better for the internal audit planning purpose. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Nikhil. At Target, what we use is a process called CAPD, which stands for Continuous Audit Planning Development. A couple of years back, as we moved into an agile way of doing, we said doing an annual plan, locking that in for 12 months and then tracking it really doesn't make sense, right? So what we do is we identify areas of the business and their business objectives. And what we do is two parts, right? One, we start leveraging the data that sits with each of the business lines, and then, hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to check if I was audible enough.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So the first thing that we do is actually leverage the data that sits with the business. So the business themselves have a lot of dashboards and queries that they've created for the regular use. So we leverage that and get dump of all that access to all that. Parallelly, what we do is we create something called an SOR, which is a system of record, where we go in and understand the underlying system, the application that is running, the data flow, the interfaces, and then we start plotting what we call our risk dashboard, wherein we look at some of the key things and then start tracking that. So when we do all this, it is in what we call a backlog and sits in a backlog. It doesn't get into an audit plan. It's not an audit that we do. So there is a lot of data that we start continuously monitoring it. It's an iterative process. And finally, when the risks are material enough and we feel that that's the area that we want to audit, from the many items in our backlog, we pull one into our audit plan, right? So I would say the way we look at it is the data flow is continuous. There's no point in an audit team going at some point and looking at it and then you're trying to evaluate, right? We look at a CAPD as a meter that kind of measures the health of the function, right? So if the meter indicates some kind of a symptoms based on the data that we are analyzed and looking at in a dashboard, we actually dig deeper and initiate an audit, right? If the meter says this function of the business is doing good, there's nothing to be worried about. It remains a backlog item and doesn't get into an audit plan, right? So that's basically how we have approached it. Parallelly, what we've also done is in not just using data, right, but even telling our businesses that this is how we do it, right? So this May, we ran an internal audit awareness month campaign and we showcased all this to our business units so that they can actually know that this is how internal audit functions. And surprisingly, a lot of businesses have come back and actually partnered with us in terms of how we can actually look at this, right? So they know that when audit comes in and looks at things, they are not actually trying to give an assurance or an audit report out, but they're trying to understand this a lot more. So I would say this is how we have used data in our backlog to filter our backlog and screen it and bring it. But also I would say talking about this to the business makes a lot of sense because that's how they will get to know this is how we're doing it.
I think that's absolutely fantastic, what you're doing in Target, Joe, because what you're actually speaking about is 2 or 3 different things. The first thing which you mention is that you are actually monitoring data on a continual basis. However, data can also be garbage in or garbage out. So what is important is that when you are monitoring this data, you have to create a set of parameters, or if I may call them inflection points. And what you have really told us is that you are working as a business support function to ensure that those data points, those inflection points are captured in a correct manner, so that the minute something goes from a green into maybe an amber silver or an orange range without waiting for it to turn into a red flag. It is an area that immediately and automatically comes back into your audit program. So you have an audit program which is continually in a state of flux or partially in a state of flux based on these parameters being breached. Is that correct?
Correct. And the way also we do it is we typically start planning for an engagement easily about 6 to 7 months ahead of when the actual engagement happens, right?
Wow.
So today we are actually doing our CAPD work for a Q1, Q2. Like we just started Q4, right? So the team is actually working on CAPD for Q1, Q2, right? That's how we look at it, right? We're saying, okay, if I have to do something in March, I need to start looking at the underlying system, the data, and all those things to figure out, is it even worth my team's time to do that audit, right? Because when the underlying data and everything actually comes in and says, looks okay, it's not a significant risk, then we don't do it. We just keep monitoring and keeping a tab on it rather than saying, okay, we started a CAPD, so we'll have to convert it into an audit, right? So that's the other part that I would say. When you want to use data, don't go, if you've already made up your mind that you're going to do the audit, then there's no point in using data to evaluate, right? So I would say give that amount of 4 to 5 months ahead so that you can use that to actually come to a conclusion whether you need to do it or not. Right?
No, that's
in audit, analytics is a very common thing, right? Once you decided, you use data for everything. So
no, absolutely correct. And I think what you have re-emphasized without actually mentioning it is the age-old wise remark that failing to plan is planning to fail. So you actually start doing your work 3 to 6 months in advance of actually starting something. And I think this is something which all internal auditors can learn from. I mean, if I may extrapolate, actually, I think a lot of India can learn from it. But yes, if we do start planning a little better, we can be a lot more effective. If we do our data analytics well in advance, we can, of course, be a lot more effective also. So now, if I may approach what is one of my favorite questions, which I personally feel that all the participants can really learn a lot from, is I'm going to ask each one of you that what are the technologies which you and your internal audit teams are actually using today in terms of upskilling your teams as well as enhancing your productivity. So Manish, if we could start with you, and of course after that we would move to first Anuj, then Rajiv, and then back to Joe. So over to Manish, please. What technologies?
Sure. So I'll try and answer this question in a macro and a sort of a micro level. At a macro level, what we have been doing since last 2.5 years now is we are now completely automating the first and the second and the third line functions and using a common platform whereby all the key processes and underlying risks, and that those risks can be operational, financial, regulatory, reputational, so on and so forth. We are identifying them, analyzing them, and sort of certifying them in one place, right? And the tool which we are using is GRC, which is Global Risk and Compliance Platform from the RSA Archer. And what we have done in last, as I said, 2 years is entirely automated the IA function, entirely made the SOX reporting and sign off automated through this tool. And we are on a journey now that the second line compliance attestations are also going to happen from here. The next stage of this journey is that we want to now use this tool for the first line people, for them to also identify the risks in their individual processes, and then link it to the common risk library and common control library which we have in the tool. Now, what it will do for us is that we will have a bird's eye view of, I think, something what other panelists also talked about is where the management is failing, right? Where the risk indicators are showing that there are red spots, white spots, etc. And then the focus and the energy will go in there, right? Also, what we are trying to do is we are very close to nailing down integration of some of our key applications and tools to this platform. What that means is, I'll use some examples. For example, the patch management, the DLP, which is data loss prevention monitoring tools, or IAM, which is identity access management tools. We want to integrate those to GRC, and then it helps us in evolving our continuous monitoring activities, which are fairly manual, if I have to be very frank today, to a straight through automated process whereby we will have thresholds of green, amber, red, weekly, monthly reporting coming out of GRC directly, which we will obviously use for decision making and also share with the senior management and the audit committee. Then if I come down to the micro level, I think we have started relooking at our audit procedures and also reconciling it back to the data lakes we have available in the company. Unfortunately, our company, a lot of it, we are working for the client, the operations, and the data. It's not so easy to get hold of because it's more on the client side, and Citrix as well as other applications we use to actually test some of this. So it's difficult to get on our side, but then we are still looking at manual intensive audit procedures where, say, we are spending close to 2,000 or 2,500 man hours in a year. And I can give some examples. We have just recently done automating endpoints, which is basically the laptops and desktops used by our agents. We used to spend 30 minutes per laptop desktop to review, which used to be 3,000 man hours annually. Now we have automated that through a query, and we are able to do the entire stack of our samples in less than 100 hours, right? With a better precision, obviously, right? So it's an evolving journey. We are trying to change the status quo, right, by thinking bigger and doing things better, obviously with the help of automation and data.
Great. So Anuj, within Maruti, what are the kind of technologies that you are using? You already mentioned Tableau and Power BI and RStudio, but happy if you could reiterate, the ones which you're using within internal audit function. Anuj, you're on mute, please.
Yeah, Nikhil. So first, let me start with the in-house piece, like what we are doing to make the audit department more effective. So just I will quickly say 2-3 examples to make it more relevant. Like for example, we started the automating the entire activities of the audit department. So traditionally, we had the same normal processes where we used to do audit planning in a manual form. Then we used to do the physically work through the various audits, and then we used to do the closing of the reports. Now, entire activity from the planning stage to carrying the monthly papers to issue the reports and all the process. So that thing we have automated, and I think that has added a lot of productivity to our department because now man hours not going into the following. So there is automated mailers going from the school to the respective people. They are filling up these forms. We are getting a lot of information on these tools. So that is one part. The thing is we have deployed many tools like earlier I just referred to regarding RStudio, Tableau. So what we have done is we have done some modeling kind of thing. We have basically have a direct link to some of these databases which are very critical. So we basically design the risk, what can go wrong. We visualize what data is useful for that risk, and then we basically develop some kind of scripting for looking at that risk. Once that thing is successful, there is a validation from the business. So what we does is, apart from running that exception list along with the audit department, we transfer that report to the business function. So gradually what is happening is whatever exceptions scripts we are developing, we are running in-house, we are gradually transferring to the business function. And it is helping them to immediately take the action. So right now it is not happen that after 2 years some auditor will come and he will find fault and then something will get taken, action will get taken. So right now it is like kind of continuous control happening, which is, so users are getting on a defined frequency, like for example, somewhere it is a monthly, somewhere it is a quarterly. They're getting this exception from these reports on their desktop, and they can take action. So like right now, vision is to have after some time no exception at all in this area. So like this is the one piece we are doing it. Regarding this knowledge upgradation within the team skilling, around 2 years back developed some kind of framework of knowledge sharing groups within the team of audit. And here we are having every week, we are having some of the latest topic where we are undergoing some of those topics as a group. And we are also inviting the lot of expert faculty from both from the business and from the outside. for upskilling this our audit staff. So this is also helping a lot because we are getting more closer to the business, because we invite very good experts from the business, and there's a lot of networking and a lot of knowledge sharing happen in this session. So this is the thing which I just want to.
No, thank you so much, Anuj. Rajiv, over to you. You have multiple businesses to handle in your function, so I'm sure you also have access to a lot of technologies. So please do share with some of us as to what you feel are the ones which are being primarily used by your team, and how you're finding them to be more effective.
Yeah, sure, Nikhil. And before, I specifically answer that question, one statistics I just wanted to share with everyone. See, till last year, globally, the two most commonly used words or commonly spoken words were okay, and then it was Coca-Cola. In 2020, it has been replaced with you are on mute. So that's unpublished statistics as of now. Just one more month and it will be published. So just FYI for everyone. Now coming back to the specific question. So I would split it into two parts, Nikhil. One is on the GRC solutions. Over last few years, I have worked, I have used, four of them. One is Auto Audit, another is Laser, RSA Archer, which I think even Manish was referring to,
Right.
Audit Board. I have used all four, and my view is they all serve the purpose, but the costings are many times very different. So depending upon the size of the organization and the type of risks you are managing, these can be evaluated. What are the foundational requirements you have, and what are the extra frills you want for which you would like to pay extra. So depending upon that, the leaders can take a call. But my experience is all four serve the purpose for that specific requirement and the organization. The second part of my answer is on now when I talk about productivity in relation to how we can do more of data, cover more of the business. I would say there are three layers, Nikhil, which are involved. One is the database layer, then is the data analytics layer. Third is the visualization layer. So in any advanced analytics ecosystem which you develop, you need to talk about these three layers. Database layer, which is about whether you will be having direct access to the database or you need to plug in your analytics solution directly to the server. Every company has different approach, but I have seen Oracle and SQL databases. If you use them, they are pretty consistent in terms of helping us as auditors. And they are there for quite some time now. Second layer, which is on the advanced data analytics, there is a lot of competition in this layer, Nikhil. Every couple of years, the contenders, number one contenders, are changing. Some time back, R was doing really well, and now I think it is Python. And then we have some more standard tools like Alteryx, ACL, IDEA, which are all-time favorites. They are very easy to use, and even smaller organizations can deploy them. So it purely depends upon, again, the type of risks you are managing and how much you want to invest. But all of them serves the purpose. Final is the visualization layer, because when you have done all these advanced data analytics, the outputs are in the form of Excel files or the CSV files, which nobody loves other than the auditors. So when you go to the CEO or the audit committee with tons of line items, it doesn't make any sense to them. So that is where the visualization tools comes into picture. My view is Tableau and Power BI, they both are doing really well. Many times Power BI becomes very economical for many of us because you get a bundled rate for that. Both have their pros and cons, but I have been using both, so I think both are equally effective. So that's my view, Nikhil, on that.
No, thank you so much. I think this is most useful for all the participants. It gives you an idea that, what are the contemporary tools being used, by different organizations which have such huge amounts of data. But before I move to Joe, there is a small request to the participants. I'm sure this is a subject, the technology aspect, which, would be of a huge interest to all of you also. So please do feel free from your side to start posing your questions, on the chat box. And certainly, if it is possible, then we will take them up during the session itself. Otherwise, maybe in the Q&A, maybe in the next 10-15 minutes, we would be starting that. We would like to do that. So back to you, Joe. What are the kind of technologies which you are using, and how do you find them working more effectively for your function?
Yeah, so we use a plethora of technologies at Target, a combination of third-party bot versus in-house built. We have a huge technology engineering team that sits in Bangalore, and so we leverage that. For our risk, we use Archer. We use SQL, R, Python for all our queries. We use Domo for visualization. We use Alteryx for driving user level or auditor level automation. We use something called Cygnus and Cygnus Lite, which is in-house built, which is probably the equivalent of what you would see an Automation Anywhere or Blue Prism for actually building our bots. And there's something called Automation Portal that we use, which is again in-house for automating workflow between systems. So all those actually leading to a lot of bots that we build that the audit team is actually now trained. So I've trained coders in the audit team who are actually working and writing and building bots, right? In addition to that, from a capability, we've added few things, right? One, we've created what we call a digital accelerator program. It's a dashboard that's got like large number of courses across various teams like Agile, technology, automation, analytics, and we've got multi-levels like a beginner, intermediate, and expert, right? So if anyone in the audit team wants to learn something, they just log in, select what domain they want, what level of expertise they want, and then the whole set of courses are available for them to learn. So we've leveraged a lot of internal training resources, existing module for CPO and things like that to build that. So that's from a knowledge and training. We also have a quarterly audit digital summit. So the summit is just a platform for each of our auditors to actually come in and showcase the fancy digital stuff that they've done in the previous quarter, right? Whether it is a bot that they have built and deployed in their audit, or if it is some advanced analytics that they've done, or like a new Kanban technique that they've used for their agile auditing model, doesn't matter, right? So we get a curated set of about 10 to 12 demo that they come and they do it. So we do that once a quarter. And that digital summit has become really popular, right? Because that's actually now inspiring the other auditors who probably not used a lot of technology to actually go in and say, hey, listen, if my colleague can actually build a bot and do this in their audit, I can do it myself, right? So that's helping us push our digital thing. The other advantage that we have as Target here is almost every single business line of the company is present in Bangalore, right? So what it helps is we can now work with our automation, AI, ML, vision computing, InfoSec, all teams who are based here, and that relationship is helping us to collaborate and actually create a lot of fancy stuff, which would be very difficult if we don't exist in that co-located ecosystem, right? For example, right now, as we speak, we're planning for an audit hackathon within the audit where we are looking at using our vision computing technology to say, how can we use vision computing to manage risk, right? So we're bringing in our technology team who work with vision computing and build that, and getting our auditors who understand the risk from stores and the risk that can be, and going to what Anuj was saying, right? You have cameras all over. Imagine somebody like Target who has like about 1,800 stores and tons of cameras all at stores, right? Plus, it's not just the data that's coming from cameras, right? But it's also things like every store have got handheld devices, tablets, so much of technology is accessible that we can now do it. So what we're saying is, how do we bring both and merge and try to address some of these tests? So things like a hackathon is working, will work for us because we've got the power of the target technology team that's sitting with us in the same place.
Oh, fantastic, Joe. I think we are all really learning so much, and I think two things which I am learning from you is that I think you're very fortunate, but you do have access to a huge team of technical people. Obviously, you're making full use of that. But second is something which I think we can all use. That can we have maybe monthly or quarterly summits where we have people who are using technologies, just like all of you have been sharing your exposure, where people come in, probably give us case studies, and we could use that for mutual learning and upskilling of the internal audit function per se. So here I would like to ask, one question which is linked to what Anirban from our, participants has also asked, that what is the growing demand for analytics professional in the domain of internal auditing? And I would like to link this to another question which I had, that will the 3 C's of continuous auditing, centralized auditing, and centralized testing define the future of internal audit? So Joe, if you don't mind carrying on for a little while longer, I think we would love to hear what you and Rajiv have to say on this particular subject.
Sure.
So back to you,
Sure.
Joe.
Thank you. I think, Nikhil, what we have done in the last 18 months, like you called out in the introduction, we've built 3 centers of excellence at Bangalore for the audit team, right? One for testing, one for analytics, and one for automation. We've been very intentional about the way we went about transforming the whole function, right? So today, our team comprises of not just traditional auditors and accountants, right? We have a sizable number of engineers, people with a data science background, software developers. So we've been able to move to a hybrid model, right? Where more than half my team are not accountants, right? So this is the future
I'll stop
model.
you right here. I'm sorry, but I couldn't resist this one. I hope all internal auditors are listening. Do not think that internal audit is something which is restricted to chartered accountants. Listen to what Joe is doing. If you want to move up the technology value add chain, you have to involve technical people in the internal audit function. It is no longer just finance, accounts, inventory, accounts receivable, and payable. It includes a host of functions, and using technical help can support. Sorry, Joe, I couldn't resist. Please carry on.
Absolutely. And I think what it has resulted in, and I think I personally believe that that's the future model of audit, right? So it has to be a combination of different skill set, and because this heterogeneous group is bringing a lot of unique skills to the table. What it has also helped is it's pushing our traditional accountants and auditors to pick up more advanced analytics, querying, coding, right? So it's moving the whole thing, because once you realize that you're surrounded by people who are talking coding, right? You also want to learn more. You also want to do more. And I think that's making us do things that are not traditionally what we would have done, right? Plus, what we've also added is we've got a lot of mentorship opportunities, right? So we're actually connecting with our data sciences team. We've got mentors from there. We've got our technology engineering teams, and we've got mentors from there. So the teams got like a connect there, so they can actually reach out, and if they're stuck somewhere, they just probably reach out to the mentor and figure out and solve it, right? All this is what is really helping us move towards it. So from an overall capability, I would say it has to be a more hybrid model. It cannot be either a pure traditional accountant or a pure engineers and thing. It has to be somewhere in between. And for example, what we also done at Target is every Friday we now call innovation hours or the innovation lab with an audit, right? So we give them 2 hours for them to actually pull out anything that they want to do and actually go about chasing it. So if they have an idea, they have something that they want to build, they throw that into a breakout room, and then people join into that breakout room, and we say, okay, this probably requires a specialized UI expert or some infra support that we need. So then we go and get that help and add that to the team, right? So that's how I would say it has to be, right? We cannot think of a future of the audit team, which is just a bunch of auditors sitting within the internal audit function, right? You have to go beyond and dip into your extended friends in other departments and get them on board and pull them in and then use them to advance the internal audit agenda.
No, I think whatever you said is extremely useful. So rather than asking Rajiv to answer exactly the same question, I just want to throw in a little twist to the what you are bringing out. Even in the good old days, you had companies which are global titans like Unilever or like Genpact, and many of them have been using the internal audit function as a kind of a fast track mechanism for their overall global leaders and their management team. So if you want to really rise to the top, you must go through the global function. So Rajiv, I mean, based on, maybe revisiting the past as well as looking into the future from what Jolly is telling us, how do you feel that, does this not the use of technical people, the use of people from different functions, does it not give us an opportunity to showcase internal audit to the top management, to the audit committee, and tell them that, hey, make sure that you give us your best and your brightest from different disciplines so that they can be used to learn more about our organizations, as well as escalate and upgrade the value which people perceive from the internal audit function and how it is looked at. It could help us say, gone are the days where the internal auditor used to be the quiet guy sitting in the corner who would always never even look up from his desk. He was so immersed in his work. Today you have to communicate, you have to be in touch with everyone, and having people from different disciplines, I think, makes you more visible. So what is your take on this? I'm sorry, I'm just changing the questions, but I think this conversation is taking such an interesting turn that I'd be happy to hear your views on this.
Sure, sure, Nikhil. So to add to what Josh shared, what he and his team is doing in Target is a fantastic example of how auditors can be a thought leaders, right? And if I refer back to how years ago we as chartered accountants or MBAs we used to do audits, I think those pure play role of traditional auditors, sooner they will become redundant. We may, it may be hard on our face to know that either those roles will become redundant or will become very low paid, because there will be so much supply of that type of skill set. So then if that will become redundant, if data scientist role is increasing, if tech auditor role is increasing, then how many of us chartered accountants, MBAs, who don't have that inclination towards technology, how we can fast pace ourselves? There I feel that a new breed of traditional auditors will rise and shine. And they are going to be the ones who will learn the art of storytelling. And what storytelling I'm referring to? The entire, data, red flags, and the exceptions being thrown by data scientists, or the outcome of the technology audits being done by computer engineers, CISSP, this and that, or the ethical hackers. Now, our audit committee and the CEOs, they may have some challenge in understanding, how it translates into my business risk. I strongly feel that we as traditional auditors, chartered accountants, MBAs, we need to master the art of storytelling so that we convert what these new age auditors, they are throwing, and how we that translate that output to a story, to a business risk language for the audit committee and for the CEO and the CFOs of the organization. So that's how I think we can play a complementary role, big strategic role into funneling that information and getting the organizational buy-in to continue investing in this entire cycle. So that's how I think the future of this profession is moving into, and that's where we need to upskilling ourselves in case we don't have inclination towards becoming ethical hacker or learn Python, R, and things like that. Storytelling is still comparatively more valuable art, and the one which will bring us closer to the business leaders.
No, absolutely. So I think what I've understood is that there are so many different streams of data and analytics of data which are being thrown towards us, that the ability to make sense out of these streams of data is what is absolutely critical. And for that, we go back to the basics. How well do we have a knowledge of our own businesses? I think that is absolutely critical. And secondly, whether we like it or not, it's quite possible that our audit committees and our audit committee chairs will not be as tech savvy as some of you on the panel are. So the ability to interpret that and tell it in the form of a good story is absolutely critical in terms of being able to make sure that your findings have a high impact on the organization and bring forth the desired results. I'm happy to see that Joe has been very actively answering some of the questions which are being posed by the different participants. I would encourage all the panelists. We've got about 5-10 minutes to go. We did think that we would try to conclude by about 6 o'clock latest. So in case if you wish, I could just quickly run through some of the questions which I'm seeing in front of me. Rakhi has asked something about backlog-based auditing. Joe has already replied to that. Varun asks that while slicing and dicing the data to identify past exceptions has been a predominant use of analytics. However, statistical evaluation to identify what can go wrong is also a focus area. Please explain, how do you report them? Would anyone like to take this question from Varun? Would you like me to repeat the question, or are you okay with it?
Yeah.
I can give it a try. Sorry, Manish, you want to go? Yeah, Manish,
Yes, Manish.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand the question right, Nikhil, it's all about, I think something we just spoke 30 seconds back, interpreting the results and how do we convey those to the senior leadership for them to, do some actioning. So I wanted to add to the earlier conversation, and then I'll use this question to answer the same. I think internal auditor role definitely will change, but I think we still are the experts in analyzing a risk and identification where the red spots are, right? The core fundamental of auditing will not change. And the IA function always needs to be ahead of the risk. So that mindset is still inculcated into us through the curriculums we have gone through, right? Now, auditors need to always be telling management that, what you don't know. So if auditor is able to create that sort of impact and continue to be relevant in the organization, then I think the role of auditing will never, go out of the picture. Now, in the digital age, I wanted to say this, that, the data processing is happening in much pace and the risks have evolved. Now, if you ask me the top 10 risks from the last year versus this year, there may be 5 new risks which have come in the top 10 for the organizations we work for, right? So how do we manage these risks? Because if one of these risks has to really pan out, the impact will be in such a large scale that we may not be able to recover. So again, auditors have to go back to basics, challenge the frameworks, look for the preventive controls more than the detective controls. Look at integrating your IT and the ops audits. Look at, data sets for sure, what we have talked. But again, the assertions of audit about completeness, accuracy, existence will have to continue to be audited, right? And we can always engage and do 100% population testing, right? Which should be our endeavor. But don't forget the basics, which is, you need to be ahead of the risk and you need to go deeper and more broader in the current age of digital.
And use technology to do so.
Nikhil, if I may take.
Sorry, I'll just take 1 second, Joe. If I can request Satish, because we have just a few minutes left and I want one minute with all of you before we wind up. If Satish can put in the poll question, we have one last poll question which we would like to hear your responses to. Sorry, Joe, back to you. Please carry on.
No, I was just saying the only one part I would add to it is echoing to what Rajiv said. We need good storytellers at the board level, right? And I think the biggest mapping that you need to do is map it back to the business objective. Don't look at it from an auditor lens and saying, this is what data is telling me, this is an exception. It would make no sense to a business leader. So if you're going to a senior VP of a function, understand what the business priorities are and use data to tell them, saying, this is how things can go wrong at your business, right? So link it always back to the business objectives.
No, absolutely. So I think again, it comes back to the basics. How well do we understand our questions? How well do we understand what we are out there to do? And what is the business out there to do? And what are the risks which can impede us from achieving those objectives? Satish, have we covered all our questions, or do you have one more poll question going, please?
Just one more question, Nikhil.
Yeah. So if you can just put it on the screen for all the participants to answer, please. Then we'll go into the wind up mode and probably ask everyone to give. Whilst you're doing that, the question is there in front of us. So, which new technologies have you invested in to upskill and complement the IA skills, either at an individual or at an organizational level? So I think this is probably the core of what we have been discussing today, and we've had lots of our panelists give us very detailed responses. Thank you very much. But it would be also wonderful to hear that what do our participants have to say as far as these technologies are concerned. So please do answer this question before we go into the final round of one minute each. So, I don't see too many surprises over here. 63% of our internal audit functions are using data analytics. Gaining a basic understanding of the technologies, 31%. Again, I see that as a very positive trend, because if you don't understand it and become aware of it, then how are you going to adopt and then later adapt it or accept it in our internal audit functions? RPA, close to 20%. Again, extremely heartening. AI and ML going at 17%. Fantastic. Yet to invest 15%. So yes, there is always scope. I'm sure in addition to this 15%, there may be some who may not have answered any questions. So, that they would also fall into this bracket. I do expect the yet to invest numbers would be a little larger than they appear as per this. So, wonderful to see. Okay, others are another 11%. So now if I may come to my final question, that would you like to share in 1 minute each as to what is your vision of internal audit in the digital age? So starting with you, Rajiv.
Yeah, sure. So my vision is actually, independent of how much reliance we place on technology. It is actually more inclined towards what business needs. So I would say my vision of internal audit is to have a function which focuses, which shifts its focus from generating best-in-class audit reports to the best-in-class root cause analysis and best-in-class sustainable recommendations for the business. I think independent of whether you are a tech company or you are into traditional business, these two are foundational and consistent ask from any organization, and hence that would continue to be my my vision of how an IA should operate.
Great. Manish?
Yeah, I would actually echo that. I think, we need to keep challenging the risk appetite of the management with the lens that, management is out there to achieve their objectives and make sure the shareholders' objectives are also, taken care at the same time. So audit team needs to play on the both sides, right? I mean, the new three lines model actually says that, which came out in July, that audit needs to be more collaborative, more communicative, and more creating awareness, around three lines across the company, around risk culture. As I said, the risk appetite needs to be challenged. Audit also needs to evolve to also look into the quick kills, more targeted readiness reviews, which can add value to the business before business is taking some key decisions, right? Again, that will help the shareholder trust factor too. So I think we are on that journey, and audit has to evolve using the technology and the tools.
Great. Anuj, your 1 minute, please.
Yeah, sure. I think my vision is to bring audit more closer to business. So basically, gone are the days when we will be looking at the past data. So as closer to the business, as closer to the transactions, that is my vision. I see my vision as a kind of like in supermarket, you see some kind of webcams which are basically monitoring so many things, but without making any noise. So I think as an auditor, we should be so discreet, so up to the role that without making enough noise, I think we should be doing our work at the back end. And whenever anything goes wrong, I think that should basically get highlighted immediately. So we should be very quick to exceptions which happen in the business and very quick to report the management.
I think that's a wonderful visualization example, a graphic example, which you've given to all of us. And I'm sure Jolie, with with lots of stores, 1,900 of them, is very happy to hear that response as well. The internal auditor acting like a video recorder of sorts, or a video camera. So, Joe, your last minute take, please.
Sure. Actually, Nikhil, we've got stated documents in terms of what a purpose and vision is and all, right? So as an internal audit, our vision remains that we provide assurance and risk insights that matter, right? That's our stated purpose. So we have to be relevant to what the organization is heading to. From a digital point of view, our stated goal is that our team members within the audit team adopt a digital first mindset in anything that they do. Right. To that extent, we are now spending so much of time on upskilling them, getting them to experience new technologies. We're looking at how internal audit as a function can identify and act and react to organizational change. Right. We are creating forums for sharing our digital operations, creating a completely digital way of working, while remaining core to our stated purpose of providing assurance and risk insights, right? So that's the vision that probably I have in terms of what the future is, right? So our core remains the same, but the operating model will shift from a traditional manpower-based assurance to a more digitally driven assurance.
Great. Thank you so much. I think it's been an absolutely delightful session as far as I'm concerned. It's been a pleasure speaking with all of you. There have been so many learnings, but at the same time, I think many of you have also re-emphasized that we cannot forget our basics. We do need to understand what is our business all about, what is our mission and vision all about, what are the risks which are possibly impeding our businesses from achieving the objectives which we've set for ourselves. And we cannot ignore the fact that we must and have to use technology in order to be able to, do a good root cause analysis, in able to analyze what are the trends of the information patterns which we are getting. What does it mean as far as the business is concerned? How do we decide what is an inflection point? What is a red flag? And we should be able to do all this and interpret it in a manner that we can make a lot of sense to our audit committees and boards. We can speak to them in simple storytelling language so that the message goes across, and we use data as an enabler to convey our message rather than to confuse the people we are finally addressing. So I think lots and lots of learnings. Thank you all very much. We've just about crossed our timeline of 6 o'clock. So I do hope all the participants have also enjoyed themselves as much as I have. Thank you all, and looking forward to meeting with you, since many of you are my personal friends. Looking forward to meeting with you again and interacting with you. But it was absolutely wonderful. Thank you, and have a great weekend to everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Nikhil.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Nikhil.
Nirmalya. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nirmalya.
Stay safe.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
wonderful
to
weekend.
Protiviti.